everybody, and welcome back to a special edition of the Charm City Sideline podcast. This week, we're bringing you a bye week Q&A, and I'm with my co-host Bradley. I am Zach. We're going to be breaking down some topics tonight that may be on your mind as just a Ravens fan. Breaking down, the last couple weeks, the weeks to come, trade targets, John Harbaugh talk. Everything that you would want to know about the Ravens and our thoughts on the Ravens about this bye week. We're going to get deep tonight. I think Brad told me a long time ago after some episode that we said it's going to be philosophical, it's going to be therapy, everything like that. Brad, what are you thinking for bye week and our Ravens?
What's up, Nate and Plug? Yeah, obviously the bye week is a good time to sort of reflect and take a bit of a break and try to think about what has gone wrong, what has gone right, and see how you can either turn your season around or keep being successful. Obviously, in the past, it's normally continue being successful. Last year, the bye week was right after that Eagles loss, which was pretty tough later in the season, but we knew that the Ravens were going to be in the playoffs. And obviously they improved a lot after the bye last year. This year, the bye comes very early. I felt like when the schedule came out, Zach, the bye was too early. Now, I think we'd be screwed if the bye wasn't right now. So it comes at a good time.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lamar is injured. Roquan's injured. Awuzie is still injured. Maybe some changes on the personnel side of things. We'll see. But it's a good time to try to make some changes. And that's sort of the whole thing we'll be talking about tonight. How do the Ravens end up making the playoffs this year? And is it possible? Comment from Makai. I'm glad they decided to practice this week instead of taking the full week off. Yeah, that's also something that's somewhat rare for the Ravens, especially because they're usually in a good spot at the bye. So, yeah, they're practicing, I think, through Wednesday this week instead of, just going to Hawaii or France on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
They're practicing until Wednesday. So we'll see as Carson also pops in here. What's up, man?
Yeah, if anyone was watching the Ravens Collective, Jeff Zrebic said that this is the max amount of time that the Ravens can practice during the bye. Like, it's supposed to be a rest kind of week, and the Ravens are just trying to fix everything they can and get it right. I love that he said that. And we're going to talk about like a lot of our topics we have listed, but if you guys have any questions, we want to answer them in the chat. Nate Blake here, comment, maybe a hot take, but now's the time to trade Andrews. That's a question. That's a good time. Like, I think we're going to be talking about trade moves or changes here as this next segment. But like, Brad, what kind of changes can we make at the bye, in your opinion, to turn the season around, at least give us more life to hopefully make the playoffs and hopefully go on a run here?
Yeah, well, we'll start with coaching. I don't think there's a point to spend too much time on Zach Orr because it's clear that they're not going to make a move there. Would I make a move? Probably. I would probably see if Chuck Pagano maybe wants to take the job and call plays. But, other than that, I don't really know who else you're going to go to. You can't bring in someone else. I mean, they don't know the personnel at all. So they're kind of just in the spot that they're in with Zach Orr right now calling the defensive plays. Obviously, John Harbaugh is not going to be fired mid-season. Even I think that they'd be better off keeping him no matter what in terms of trying to win games. Like firing your head coach is basically punting on the season. So there's no point of doing that. And then obviously Monken is here. So that's how I feel about the coaches. Pretty short and sweet. You have any differing thoughts there?
No, from what I saw about the game and hearing, analysts talk about it, our good guys, the Ravens Collective talk about it. Like, there's changes that can be made, and they just haven't really pushed all their chips into the middle of the table and made them. They just aren't trying the big moves kind of thing. So maybe this bye week you see a full day of Corey Bullock with the first team O line. Maybe you see Kyle Hamilton move up and start to move around. It could be anything. It literally could be anything. Try anything. Make a move like we're asking for. To kind of just go back a little bit, what Nate was asking, is now the time to trade Andrews. Like I heard it said so well. You have a couple more games before that deadline happens, and that's when you need to decide. Right now, if we were to win the next couple games, our team is feeling a little more energized and starting to get the swagger back, everything like that. It's a whole new season. We're just on our heels and back against the wall. But our team, if we did make a couple moves in a positive note of gaining players to help us and refresh the locker room, then we are starting to scream a whole different story. I think that if we lose those games and it's just brutal, it's as brutal as the last couple of weeks have been, even with Lamar, then maybe we see more drastic changes and big names moved. But I think that there's still moves to be made and changes to be made, and we're not seeing them. And I'm hoping that, after this bye week, maybe an Emory Jones is in play, or like I mentioned, Corey Bullock. A lot of people, always talk about like Ben Cleveland, anyone that can help out. I think we're all just so sick of seeing this O-lineman play. I loved everything they talked about with Tyler Linderbaum. Big fan of him, and talking about extensions or signings and all these players that we have right now, about the future of the roster. I'm kind of rambling here, but overall, I feel like the changes that we can make over the bye are possible for the better of the team. And I just want to see something different. And I think the defense, honestly, was taken in the right step, but I don't think the offense was. And besides the run game. So hopefully we do see some changes, or a real, I mean, is Harbaugh basically betting on Daniel Faalele and Andrew Voorhees with his job? Like, are those two really going to be the answer and turn the whole season around? I don't know.
I guess so. And, we can sort of keep the topic on the offensive line here, I guess. Ronnie Stanley's been banged up. It's the same ankle that got injured back in 2020. He has continued to try to play, and I'm trying to I've just been continuing to say, just take a few weeks off, take 3-4 weeks off, especially when Lamar wasn't playing and we were losing anyway. I would have loved for Stanley to just not play for 2 or 3 games. But he obviously did. Hopefully he can get healthy over the bye, because Noteboom has not been good. Voorhees actually played well against the Rams after him and Faalele were both pretty terrible all year. And then you mentioned Linderbaum, who is maybe having the worst year of his career so far. But, he's between Faalele and Voorhees. Like, think about if you're in a group project at school or in college, or even doing something at work with people, and the people that you're paired up with are doing a terrible job, or they don't care, or maybe you have to overcompensate for them. You're not going to do as great of a job yourself. And I think that's sort of what Linderbaum is dealing with right now, playing in between Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Faalele. And then, of course, there is Daniel Faalele, who I think you and I have probably given him a bit more grace than the majority of the Ravens fan base. With that said, we still have wanted him benched for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely has to be a move in terms of changes, which we're talking about tonight. I think that's number one priority, is getting a new guard in there. I don't think Emory Jones is going to be ready yet. Kind of weird conversation going on about how he's just starting pass pro or whatever. Like, they're really giving us the full detail on what Emory Jones is doing in his day-to-day practice right now. But Corey Bullock looked great in the preseason. Ben Cleveland apparently practices very poorly, but he looks like an okay starter when he does play in regular season games, which is better than Falele, obviously. And then, Rosengarten struggled a little bit at right tackle, but you're obviously not going to make a change there. So I'll be interested to see. I mean, there is no way if Harbaugh feels like he's on the hot seat at all, or if he wants to make the playoffs this year, I can't imagine keeping Falele in there. I just can't.
Yeah, and kind of a different change we can talk about here, as Andy talks about, or in the comments. We wanted to talk about just defensive personnel changes / coaching changes. Like Harbaugh going to bat for Orr, I have major respect for doing that. I mean, that is like total. That's some balls to do that kind of a thing, especially as you've seen through the first couple weeks. And it's again the same story we're talking about. Is there really a guy on the roster that can do it better than Orr like right now? And I think that's also the question. Like a few years ago when we had this absolutely stacked group, let's say Mike Macdonald was, bad at calling plays and he gets kicked out. We had a few guys that now looking back are defensive coordinating level guys, coaches in the league. So maybe our team isn't very confident in that. Maybe we asked Coach Pagano and Pagano said, I don't really want to do that. Like there's many levels and many steps. And I don't think that we have the personnel to do it in the coaching department. But it's still good to see a young guy get backed by, the head honcho and Harbaugh, and even Pagano giving him some flowers, saying that he called a much better game. He did have a much better game, held one of the top offenses in the league, 17. I know they didn't have Puka, but I don't think that there's a big change. And I think it's not working because there's something in the water with the Ravens and these D coordinators starting slow. And whether it's, not having the mesh of the actual physicality and speed of an actual game at the beginning of the years, at the very, very, very beginning of this season, I had felt it even in calling, picking games, you and me going through the Ravens schedule. And I said, guys, I don't think they're going to be winning any of these first, I think it was 4 or 5 games because those are the toughest, but everyone was like, no, they're going to win. They're going to be good. I would have thought to have confidence in Zach Orr, but it just didn't happen. It's what happens with this coaching. And I think it just takes a second to mesh. And even if you go back to Mike Macdonald, his first, one of his 2 years started out really, really rough.
Yeah. It was like the first month of his first year.
See, and eventually got it turned around. Like even then it was around the bye and then you turned around. Like maybe we need to give a little more time before we start seeing real results. Although no one is going to be satisfied with seeing almost dead last in every statistic defensively for this team. And even if they were the number 1 defensive team the rest of the year, you're still not going to be, top 5, top 10 numbers and statistics wise. So I hope that there's big personnel changes. But as of right now, you don't have, I think, the weaponry and the tools to get it all done within the roster. So maybe they make a couple of changes there.
Yeah, well said. And, we've talked about obviously again and again that this defense personnel wise isn't great. Like it's not all on Orr, and we've put some blame on Eric DeCosta and we've put some blame on John Harbaugh. Like these are the guys that John Harbaugh is bringing up and teaching. Mike Macdonald, he brought up and taught. Zach Orr, he brought up and taught. Like these are his guys that he developed in his system. And I just don't think Zach Orr has it yet. Maybe, he is in his mid 30s, like 5 years from now, he's only going to be 40. Maybe he's a elite defensive coordinator in, San Francisco 5 years from now, and he ends up getting a head coaching job. But I think at least right now, I don't think he has it. Ravens feel very slow to adjust on the defensive side of the ball right now, if at all. sort of reminds me of the way Greg Roman and the Ravens offense would adjust, halfway through the fourth quarter, kind of figure it out with 7 minutes left in the game and score a couple of quick touchdowns when it was too late. I'm sort of feeling that vibe with Orr. But again, Zach, 0 pressures from an edge rusher on Sunday. That is I don't think I have a word in my vocabulary to describe how pitiful that is. Not a single pressure from an edge rusher. Does Madubuike still lead the Ravens in sacks, or he's at least tied?
Oh yeah, I think he leads them
at the front with 2 sacks still, and he's played in 2 out of 5 games. I mean, it's terrible. Owe did have a sack for the Chargers, but he didn't play too well overall. Yeah, and he was bad in the run game like he had been in the past. And that's a trade that I liked. Alohi Gilman, man, looked good. Especially, I didn't realize he was as good as he actually was once I watched some of the film. Very helpful in the run game. So I think that's going to be a positive, moving Hamilton back into the box with Starks and Gilman back there. Also getting Awuzie back, he hasn't played in a few weeks, will help as well. So, the defense is definitely in a tough spot. Roquan's going to come back too. I felt like Trenton Simpson played one of his most consistent games on Sunday as well. But, we can sort of get into this now. They got to make a move for someone. Probably 2 guys. And we've mentioned how you can't make a Yannick Ngakoue type of move where he's going to be gone after this year because you're not 5-1 right now. You're 1-5. And, we've talked about this roster. They have a ton of holes to fill. And if you could fill one of them right now, that's a positive. And, maybe you go on a run and try to make the playoffs, and he helps out there as well. What are your thoughts on maybe trading for someone, signing someone? I mean, at this point, they probably need to bring in 2 edge guys and maybe an interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, there's been some swing and misses. We've talked about edges, and there's been opportunities. There was like a Clowney. There's a Zadarius Smith. There were some names tossed around in trade. Even if you go all the way back to Micah Parsons, like there's been opportunities. The Ravens have been interested, and then they sent out their own guys. They were confident in their group that didn't end up being the right group. And then now we're here where we're putting up absolutely miserable does not even do it justice level stats in pass rush and D line. Like, I think we played a better game. I'll say it, like running defense wise, but getting to the quarterback, there is negative levels of getting to the quarterback right now. And I think that begging for a trade is putting it lightly as well. What I think that Cole Jackson said super, super well was that you can't go get the young guy. Like, you can't say a 3rd round pick for Kayvon Thibodeau is the immediate fix. Like, sure, Thibodeau is a talented player, but this team needs leadership at this point. When you have to talk about leadership, I think that's what the Ravens' big thing is. When you talk about leadership, that it means you don't have it. Like, it's supposed to be something you don't even see and notice. And the team just lacks it and lacks a veteran or 2 or 3. Kyle Van Noy is supposed to be that guy, but he's been injured a little bit and hasn't been able to put up the statistics to be able to have that role as well. So I think that you could see the Ravens give up some high draft capital if it was the right guy, but I'm getting nervous about actually making the play because I don't know really who's out there and who the Ravens would be willing to go get. Like, it feels like when you mentioned the stars and all, like some of the teams are kind of making a turnaround or just fired a head coach or maybe just got a big win or whatever it is, or trying to keep some of the young guys for their future rosters. What makes us think that they're all available right now? And also we got to pay some guys too. So if we were to say we want the 1 year kind of buyer pick. Maybe that 1 year person that was a pretty cheap get plays very well, and we decide we want to go in a different direction defensively and personnel wise. So I'm up for really anything on the defensive side besides, keeping some of our cornerstones. But that's a good comment from Andy. I felt like Kyle Van Noy worked best with Beeks in the game. Yeah, I felt like Madubuike just made everyone better, and now not having him, it's pretty obvious. But trade wise, Brad, what do you think is? I mean, you said you wanted 2 moves, but like, I assume it's just D line, right? Didn't you say edge?
Yeah, I think you got 3 edge rushers on the 53 right now: Ojabo, Van Noy, and Mike Green. I mean, there's guys on the street. Obviously, everyone that's not signed right now is going to be unsigned for a reason. I apologize if any of these guys are currently on teams, but I believe this list is correct. Some edge rushers that are available: Shaquille Barrett, DeMarcus Walker, Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue, Jerry Hughes, Tyus Bowser, Cleveland Farrell. So, like, not great names right now. And then, interior D-line, Christian Wilkins, no one's going to sign him. Deshaun Williams, Linval Joseph, Eric Banks, Carl Davis, Khalil Davis, Armin Watts, Angelo Blackson, Kyle Pecco. Obviously there's not going to be anyone great available right now, but you need bodies. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bring, some of those guys in. I think it's pretty likely that they trade a 4th or a 5th or a 6th round pick for someone that we didn't really even know was available.
Right.
It was like a solid player, an average starter. We'll see if they make a bit bigger of a move. I think that's more so going to happen if they rattle off 3 or 4 in a row after the bye, and they're maybe sitting at 4-5 or 5-5.
Well, apparently it's only 2 games before the trade.
Oh, okay. So they only have 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's the difficult part, because at best you're 3-5 now, debating whether you're going to, go all out on the season.
I think that's a good catch. And I think if you're sitting at 3-5 and let's say they beat the Bears and then go on Thursday Night Football, beat the Dolphins by 14. I think I would be okay with them trading a 3rd round pick for someone and giving him an extension, right? Like, you still have to make sure he's here for the long run. But if they win these 2 games and also look good, right? They have to look good. They can't beat the Bears in overtime and then beat the Dolphins after Tua gets injured or the Dolphins fumble 3 times and the Ravens barely win. It needs to be convincing wins.
Yeah.
And see if they can get someone coming from Kwame, Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that'd be an awesome fit. He's a good player over there on the Giants. They have a ton of guys in their front 7, almost a little bit overcrowded, which is crazy to say.
It is overkill. It is.
I love Jeffrey Simmons, the player. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to trade for him. Obviously, there's a ton of interior D-line guys we like that would probably cost a 1st, if not more, to acquire.
Yeah, but even like when you go back to how badly we were begging for the fix at middle linebacker and we got Roquan, 2nd round pick for a guy that, becomes your franchise middle linebacker. We, as a group, I think we would say we would do that again, 100 times over. So I hope that, like Originate says, we need to invest in a proper gangsta at the edge. I love that. No more dollar store guys. Just like that's a good way to put it. Don't go out and say that, a signing of some edge that you just listed, a Jerry Hughes, like, is the fix. It's not. Go out and get the real guy if you are going to. And this might be just a PSA as well. It might not be during the bye week. Maybe DeCosta's calling the most right now, but like we've mentioned, it's a couple more weeks before that deadline. So we might have our hands tied to see if we're going to be the technical buyer or seller for all of that. But as it gets closer, it does get a little more intimidating. anything else to add on this topic before we go on? And especially if anyone else has anything to add in the chat, please comment. Kwame even added like about something with like Zach Orr, and we're 2 years into the Orr leadership. Why are we doing it Lamar's prime? Super good questions. Like that. Those are the philosophical questions.
I mean,
we wanted, right?
Yeah, like if we want to talk about that comment, like, yeah, why are we promoting a defensive coordinator who we don't have no idea if he's going to be successful or not during the prime of this Hall of Fame quarterback that we aren't going to see one as good as this in our lifetime? And it's a good question. Like, I was fine with them promoting Orr when they did it. I felt a little iffy about it because I knew that Anthony Weaver and Denard Wilson both had more experience. But I know that Mike Macdonald wanted to take Zach Orr with him to Seattle and be his non-play calling defensive coordinator over there. So, Mike Mack believed in him too, and it just hasn't worked out yet. Might not end up working out. So it's definitely just a tough decision. Obviously, Harbaugh made the wrong decision and should have gone with Wilson or Weaver. Obviously, in life, you wish you made a lot of different decisions. But, just got to do the best with what you have right now. And like you said, they did look better against the Rams. I do think the Rams offense played really bad. I think they should have scored more than they did. But at the end of the day, they had 17 points on the scoreboard, and that was tied for the Ravens' best game of the year on the defensive side of the ball. So you got to look at it that way and hope for the best. They're not playing crazy offenses the rest of the way. There was a tweet from Aaron Schatz, I believe, about DVOA as I pull it up here. And the Ravens, are going from playing to teams top 5 in DVOA, top 10 in DVOA, and now they're going to be playing a lot of bottom 10, bottom 15 teams in DVOA over this next pretty long stretch until they have the Patriots and the Packers. So it probably will be turned around and inevitably look better, even if there wasn't improvement. So if there is improvement on top of an easier schedule, this defense is probably going to have another pretty substantial turnaround. And I don't think it would be too surprising, honestly, because of who they're playing against.
Yeah, the schedule is favoring Mackay. They relied too much on our talent on the defensive side and thought they could mask any problems that Orr might have in the beginning. And that, honestly, I think that's true. And it might have happened. If you go back to last year, it was the same kind of, you struggle in the beginning and looked elite by the end of it. And so if you went by the Mike Macdonald method of this equation, then the next year is supposed to be genuinely elite. And it just hasn't been. It might be the same story as last year, but it could be worse. Yeah. So, big question. This doesn't need to be the big magical topic because you've heard it all week. It's the discussion if we need to move on from Harbaugh, whether that happens now, whether that happens in 2 more weeks and they're both losses. Drew Brees, Jeff Saturday on First Take said, do not. If you want the comparison, Stephen A. Smith said, do get rid of him. So you can pick whichever opinion you'd like. Harbaugh has not gotten more than 1 win in a playoff run with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. And it really just comes down to the question if the Ravens need a new leader. And again, it's another topic that Zrebic kind of nailed, talking about the Ravens and how I love this, how arrogant they are. Like they are so confident in their guys when they have them that, even CJ Gardner-Johnson, when they got Gilman, they're like, all right, goodbye. It's like, we don't actually need you anymore. Our guys are going to be fine. And still having Harbaugh march out in these press conferences and say the very PR answers and say that, yeah, I fully trust in Zach Orr. Yeah, I fully trust in Monken. If we ever have a problem, we go to each other and talk about it, iron it out, whatever. And it's just really hard. I think you and me both have major respect for John Harbaugh because he's just a winning coach. Like he is genuinely a good football coach, and we're asking for a different leader in the locker room for this because it feels like when we say this term of losing the locker room, it feels like it carries so much weight, and it can also be in the context of you lose the locker room because they're not putting their best effort on the field. Last week was a different argument to be had. I felt like they did actually put pretty good effort on the field. Maybe, some bad play calls with Rational. But other than that, if the team is taking a step in the right direction, I think all of us would say that we're willing to feel it out and ride with John Harbaugh for another week or two. But like I remember kind of phrasing it like this, like, when does the back break on this? Like, I know we can have an absolutely miserable year the rest of this season, and maybe Lamar coming back saves nothing, and we finish, like 5-12, something ridiculous, less than that, something even more ridiculous. So I feel like we wouldn't go through an entire season of Lamar Jackson being healthy for the rest of these 11, 12 games with Harbaugh and with this coaching group, even if we knew like the team was capable, but it's just not right now.
Yeah, I'm riding with Harbaugh the rest of the year. I mean, I've already mentioned this. I think it would be dumb to fire him mid-season. What is that going to do? The season would be cooked anyway. John Harbaugh is 173 and 109 in his career, 61.3 winning percentage. Nick Wright was talking today about Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, actually, and he was mentioning how quarterback head coach combos, if they don't win a Super Bowl within their first 5 years together, they never have. It's never happened. And Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson are well past year 5. And I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but that's definitely a pretty telling statistic that this match probably isn't working. And, I have a lot of friends who have fans of other NFL teams, from Chiefs to Steelers to Bengals to Bills. And I talk to them about it, and they do not want the Ravens to fire Harbaugh, right? Like, that's pretty telling. I think the Bills are in a very similar spot. I'd be concerned if the Bills fired Sean McDermott and brought in, an offensive guru or a defensive guru. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I think getting rid of the coach where you've been unable to get over the hump with for a long time can be a good move, especially in the NFL. Like, Penn State just fired James Franklin. I don't think that's the best move in college, because James Franklin had gotten them to, this great success after taking over what was a terrible situation. And they've been in the playoff, and they were one play away from the national championship. And James Franklin doesn't have a Hall of Fame, generational quarterback, right? Like,
Yeah.
And also when you fire a coach, in college football, I think there's so much of a higher chance that it's like, oh, the grass wasn't always greener. Where in the NFL, I think it's more based on the talent of the team. And if you have a great quarterback, your floor is high anyway. And with Lamar Jackson, I think you have an extremely high floor. And I think they're at about the bottom of that floor right now. I don't think it could get much worse. So I don't really see what the risk is, in getting a new coach. Everyone's talking about, it could be risky. Maybe he's not as good as Harbaugh. The Ravens are 1-5. They're 1-5 right now. Like, are they going to be 0-6? Like, okay, that's not much worse, I'm really rambling right now, but like, Steve Bisciotti was going to fire Harbaugh in 2018. They were 4-5. They hadn't made the playoffs for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. It was going to be the 4th year in a row of not making the playoffs. Lamar comes in. They're 4-5. Lamar comes in. They make the playoffs.
Saves.
Harbaugh's job is saved. They finished 10-6. This year, they're 1-5. Lamar's going to come back. If they go on a run and make the playoffs, we've talked about this, Zach. I'd be a little bit concerned that they would not move on after a playoff loss because, it will be thought of as this great run, 9-2 to finish the year, 10-1 to finish the year after starting 1-5, when in reality, it would just be because Lamar Jackson came back to this offense. Obviously, it's been a lot worse without him. 32.8 points per game with Lamar this year, 6.5 points per game without him, 338 yards per game with Lamar Jackson, 251.8 yards per game without him. So that's sort of my take on it, Zach. I know I just talked for a while, but I just think no matter what, unless they get to the Super Bowl, I would move on. And I just think it's the right thing to do. Lamar's, basically entering the second half of his career next season, probably. Yeah. And it hasn't worked yet. And you need to see if it's going to work with someone else.
Yeah, and even then, you can't really tell, into the future with Lamar and how long he'll play. He's a, very athletic guy. Like, we might very well be in the second half. Like, it's total chaos to think about that kind of situation too. I'm gonna go to bat a little bit for Harbaugh here. So, like, KP's comment here about watching his QB get killed and his defense give up 15 and admit he's wrong. I don't think that's accurate. I think that him and the coaches have said in every single press conference, like, yeah, play calling sucked. We sucked. Our team is not good. It needs to get better. We will be better. It's not been this, like, negative, like, yeah, freaking Faalele blows. It's not us. It's not us as freaking fans. It honestly is the attitude in which you have to have if you want any success for the rest of the year. So I'm with you. I'm with you and the team that says, let's get rid of Harbaugh. And if he doesn't, even get to a Super Bowl, like, he needs to go. There needs to be new life, new blood for this organization. But again, it goes back to the very first thing we talked about with this organization's kind of arrogance of our guys are the right guys. And it's hard to say just by statistics and by a very, very, very outside look that you would say that Harbaugh deserves to be fired besides this season. So if they do make a comeback, like you said, then I just don't think they'll fire him. I think they'll keep him. And I don't want to be on that road, but I think it's the truth. Like Andy saying, like, might as well go 0-6. We only won against the Browns. Like, I think that's something. Yet I have no idea how to say your name. I have a feeling that the Ravens are going to keep Jonathan Ravens if they make playoffs. Yeah,
I'm with you. LNFN.
Yeah, I think that's true. Kwame here. It's one thing to speak positivity, but what about simple changes that everyone can see? Why is it so hard to sit Faalele? Is Cleveland not bad?
We've talked about this, Zach. It's the friend you have in a terrible relationship that won't break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend because they're not able to sort of see the red flags when the outside perspective can. And I'm not saying that's fully what it is, but I think there's a lot that goes into that where the people inside the organization are stressed. They're thinking about a million things. They really like Daniel Faalele. They're trusting him. And, like, they just think this is their guy. And they don't think that Corey Bullock or Ben Cleveland is going to play better. And they're concerned about making the switch. And that's kind of how I felt about it, because there's literally not another way in my mind that I think they could be watching this tape and not realize that there should be a better option on this roster. I mean, Daniel Faalele is not good. I think he's playing much worse than he was last year. I mean, he started every game last year and he wasn't this noticeable. In a negative
he does have a target on his back, though. Like, it's a large target.
He does. But, the right side of this offensive line last year was the exact same that it is right now, and they're playing a lot worse, which I know a lot of people have been talking about George Warhop and questioning his ability. Obviously, terrible, tragic situation that happened with Joe D, him passing away, last end of summer or early season, whenever it was. Um, and they sort of had to go on the fly with Warhop, and every single player has regressed. Like, you got to look at the position coach. I mean, Todd Monken's been here the whole time. Lamar's been here the whole time. Derrick Henry's been here for 2 years. Everything is the same. The only thing that's changed is the offensive line coach. So, that's where I would look. But at the same time, Falele is playing worse than the rest of them. And we already talked about it, but you got to make a change there, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were talking about Warhop still in the chat. I know there's some bad looks for him right now too. Like all 22 films, shout out to them. They really like covering the Ravens kind of content, and especially good looks at big plays, and one of which very noticeable and memorable for last game being the 4th down that they don't get on the goal line after 2 tush pushes. Harbaugh was super. He was negative about not getting 2. He called them specifically quarterback sneaks. Not getting 2 quarterback sneaks at the goal line is inexcusable. And then you go back to the actual play and what happened on the play. None of your old linemen won an assignment except for, noted by a couple analysts, Corey Bullock. Like, if you're not seeing the energy, maybe you're seeing the energy from someone like Fa'alele in practice and Voorhees in practice, and that's what makes you turn the other way whenever they're in game looking absolutely lost. But if we're looking in game, seeing someone put the best effort possible on the field, being the only guy on that line to actually win their assignment and actually show competence for the future, give him a chance. That's what I want to see. And my buddy Clubble, should I trade Derrick Henry for a bag of chips in my fantasy league?
I have an opinion on this.
You think yes?
I think no. The Ravens' schedule is so light. I think he's going to start to have a lot of really good games. Hold on to Derrick Henry if you have him. Same with Lamar. Hold on to Lamar too.
Yeah.
I've been trying to trade for Lamar in my fantasy league because, the teams that the Ravens play coming up do not have good defenses.
Cake. Matt Rasta, can we talk about the draft? Me and Brad got so into the draft last year in the offseason, so maybe the offseason we'll be talking about it a lot, but especially with the high pick if we do kill it, right?
If the Ravens are, definitively out of the playoffs early December, we might start.
Hey,
mock draft Monday is a little early.
That is hilarious. But it's probably true. We're going to be running out of stuff to say.
I know.
And kind of the last kind of real question we have here before we get to the panic meter. Oh, Cole here with a comment. This season is wrapped, but I'm excited to see Adisa Isaac when he gets healthy. Looked pretty good in preseason. Young guys need a lot of playing time. Yeah, and how much they've given playing time to someone like Mike Green and company with the young guys. Even does Adisa Isaac exist in the comments? I think they will give the opportunities to those guys to see. The issue being for me, if they do go out and lose the next 2 games or win the next 2 games, and you would have to make big decisions on, okay, you're probably not going to play Adisa Isaac much, or you're not going to play a Mike Green as much. So it's a complicated topic there. You have anything to add for that one?
Not necessarily. It'll be nice when Adisa Isaac gets back, but I think Harbaugh said mid to late November still, so we're probably 4 to 6 weeks away from that still. I think he had to get surgery on his elbow, and a comment from Kwame, he has been hurt a lot. So, we'll see if he can stay healthy. He did look really good in the preseason. Comment from LNFN. Do you think Keaton will see the field again this year? I do think they're going to continue to ramp him up, especially, after the bye. But it is a numbers game with the roster. So we'll see with Keaton. I do think you need to have him on the field more than you do. Also, Zach, let's have Derrick Henry on the field on 3rd and 2s, please. I think the Rams game was one of Todd Monken's worst games. I think the Rams game and the Chiefs game were probably the 2 worst games we've seen from Todd Monken since he was the offensive coordinator here. Just a lot of questionable decisions. Tom Brady was calling out a lot of the play calls too. That's just something I've noticed as well.
And I don't like that we're betting on, going back to the Jabo topic, we're betting on someone like, not a Jabo, Adisa Isaac, with where we're at in the season. But also like the Keaton topic. I have a real hard time with this because I have almost conflicting points for this, because I'm with you. If you have Derrick Henry, how can he not be on the field 80% of the snaps? That's a little exaggeration, but like, holy crap, he needs to be out there. It feels like anytime he is, it's just a different look from the defense. And on the other hand, I kind of like what I'm seeing from Justice Hill and what I'm seeing from Keaton. So it hurts to say that I would rather have Henry out there, but also I want to see what Keaton and Justice are made of. There's just not enough opportunities for all three to be, playing super well. And Zrebrick mentioned it, that Justice Hill is like Superman at the end of games right now. He is like, he's playing like prime Barry Sanders out there, or prime freaking CMC, and just like yard after catch and tough hits and bouncing off. It's impressive stuff. And I want to see someone like that play. So I'm also kind of struggling with that. And I'm also kind of struggling with having Keaton Mitchell and giving him a chance. So really, I know it matter as the garbage stats. I know they're trash, like garbage time stuff, but that's not the point of it. I mostly see him as like, he's one of the few guys on your team that looks like he's giving 100% effort all the time. So I want to see someone like that with the ball. If I know Henry is too, but like, I appreciate someone like that playing super hard, and feels like if he is a talented player, you need to be playing him. And there's just not enough opportunities for all of them. It's a tough topic for me.
Agreed.
I think this final topic. Yeah. 24.8% chance to make the playoffs per ESPN Analytics. Brad, can the Ravens still make the playoffs? And we had the discussion, do we want them to, kind of with Harbaugh and all, but I would say they still can for sure.
Yeah, we talked about this right after the Rams game. 4 teams in NFL history have made the playoffs after starting 1-5. It is crazy. Yeah, Mad Roster with the comment, like 1-5 teams have made the playoffs below 2% of the time in NFL history. With the Ravens sitting at 25%, that is a crazy difference, right? And it just is a testament to Lamar Jackson and how easy the schedule is. And, you look at the schedule and they come out of the bye and they play the Bears. For anyone that doesn't know, it's a 1 p.m. game on Sunday. And then 4 days later, they go down to Miami and play the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. Absolutely have to win those 2 games. You can't be 1-6. You can't be 2-6. So they got to be ready to go, because you're not going to be practicing much in between the Bears and the Dolphins game. So got to go win both of those games back to back, reset on that mini bye, and then you got to go beat Minnesota up in Minnesota. And then you got some division games coming up. So
always tough games.
Yeah, they have 11 left. They have to go 9-2. They could maybe go 8-3 if their losses were not against divisional opponents. But, 9-2 is the number you're looking at realistically.
Yeah, and I just feel like that's too much to ask. I think seeing last week with the defense, it's in the right direction, and seeing the rushing offenses, it's getting to what we want it to be. But 9-2 is so much to ask. Even that one year where you'd said it, that Lamar 2021 maybe, that before the injury he was what, 8-3?
2021 the Ravens were 8-3, just went to 8-4 off the Andrews 2-point conversion against the Steelers. But they were like the 2 seed when Lamar got hurt with a terrible that roster was so much worse than this one. So
it still just feels like it's a lot to ask, and it's hard. I mean, yeah, we're talking about Khalil saying you're a miracle almost, but unless you really get almost a superstar in here to fully change the organization's face, to change the organization's entire mood and confidence. Even if we had the worst roster, 8-3 is still like really freaking good. We would be really happy with a 8-3 team no matter what. So, for me, it's hard to imagine it. And I don't think we're a tanking team by any means. Matt Ross, I don't know if they knew the actual stat, but teams that have made the playoffs after going 1-5 have not won a game in the playoffs. So think about the Ravens going 9-2 to end the year and then going into the first round and then dropping it.
yeah,
Absolutely detrimental to the organization and to the fan base. Like we would just be in shambles.
Unless they still moved on and got a new head coach. I think the best case scenario is Ravens go on a run, make the playoffs, win a playoff game, maybe 2. But, and this is a big but, you still have to move on and get a different coach if you lose in the playoffs. And I don't trust them. It's not even them. It's just Steve Bisciotti. I don't trust that that would happen. So if anyone is rooting for the Ravens to lose because you think they need a new coach in order to win a Super Bowl, I would not be mad at that. You know, I'm not going to hate on you for doing that. While the Ravens are on my TV or while I'm watching them, if I'm at the game, I can't not root for them. And I feel like for you guys, it's probably the same.
Yeah.
Even if you may want something different. So Zach and I are obviously going to be rooting for them while they're playing their games. But, you know, it comes down to whether there's a coaching change or not. And we're obviously hoping for that.
Talk about a good comment here from Kwame. From Super Bowl potential to picking top 5 in the draft is so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it in the NFL where maybe the Jaguars in years past were like this just awful team, and then they go out and make the playoffs, like a full turnaround. I'm not sure I've ever seen a team go from the opposite, where it was you're supposed to win the Super Bowl or you're the Super Bowl favorite, actually, or anywhere near it, and then pick top 5. And it wasn't because of a season-long injury to your best player. Like, yeah, we're going to get Lamar back. Probably going to win like 4 or 5 games minimum. But those other games, like, we're going to have a couple of footballs bounce our way or like luck happen for a 9-2 record. And it's hard to say. Like, yeah.
Zach, if for these last 11 games, what would you create as an over-under line for wins?
Whoa.
In terms of just the last 11, not the total record. Like, would 7.5 be a good line?
That's what I was about to say.
Do you think 6.5 would be more realistic? Like, I think 7.5 is probably what the line would be set at if Vegas were to do this. And that just tells you that, you know, we're kind of expecting the Ravens to go either 7-4 or 8-3 in this stretch. And if they do a little bit better than what we're expecting, they're making the playoffs. So it's crazy to think about. Obviously, we wouldn't be surprised if they also just kind of lay an egg and, have a top 10 pick,
Yeah.
I would be less surprised if they're in the hunt with a few games left, though. I really think that's more so in the cards.
And the funny part is we're going to be really fighting to be in the playoffs with how much parity we have seen so far in the NFL through 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can you not want to be in the playoffs? Just have a chance to get in the playoffs and rattle off 3 games to get in. Like, the team is capable of winning 3 games in a row. They have the roster to do it. They have the coach to do it. But right now you're not seeing any product that would tell you otherwise. And you now have to dig yourself out of this hole that we've made ourselves. And someone said, who was it? KP, as long as Buffalo doesn't go to the bowl, I'll be all right. Like, as of right now, the Chiefs look pretty good. But like the AFC, even the NFC is wide open. The NFL does not have the Super Bowl favorite. They lost the Ravens. The Bills are dropping a game or two. The Chiefs have all of a sudden probably skyrocketed, and the Eagles have dropped a couple of heartbreakers. Like, all these teams that were at the top of the list have only gotten like lesser odds to do it. They're still up at the top, but it's still like their odds have just dropped. So
Yeah.
the parity right now is just insane. A massive trade move to flip that script. Like, we would all be jumping for joy if there was a Jeffrey Simmons, Max Crosby, a Quinnen Williams deal made, and we wouldn't really care about the draft capital we give up. Like, yeah, if we gave up a first round pick or a second round pick and we suck, then we're going to be mad we gave it away. But if you have a guy for the next couple years, as well as helping us this year win a bunch of football games now the rest of this year, I think we'd all say yes to it. I think we all would, even if it does mean giving up premier capital.
Yeah.
It's about the organization and how much DaCosta is so stingy with some of those higher picks. And even who's available, like we mentioned before.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and get into this panic meter?
Absolutely, sir. Panic meter is tough. We got some tough topics because the first one, I know you're sore about this topic.
So guys, feel free to comment your own scores, 1 to 100. 100 is you're panicking. 1 or 0 is you don't care at all, you're chilling. As we take a quick break here, feel free to like the video right now, helps us out a ton. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to us. 3 episodes a week all season. Also hit the notification bell if you want to get notified when we go live or when we release an episode. So appreciate you guys for being here, and let's go ahead and get into the panic meter.
So KP pre-fired it. KP pre-fired 121 out of 100. Which might be your answer to this topic, by the way.
Probably. So, as we all know, after the 2023 season, after the Ravens defense had the triple crown, Mike Macdonald left to go to Seattle. I believe the Seahawks have now won 9 consecutive road games. They are sitting at 4-2. They traded for Sam Darnold. They got rid of DK Metcalf. They drafted Nick Emmanwori. They hired Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator, and everything they've done has been awesome. JSN's been amazing. That defense has been lights out. It just seems like everything they're doing right now is an A+ move. And I was pretty sad and mad when Mike Macdonald left, combined with an AFC Championship loss. And I was ready to make the move. It's crazy to ask ownership to do that when you've had this coach for, at the time, 16, 15 years. But man, the Seahawks look awesome right now, Zach.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't want to say I'm a max level for this because we haven't seen him through not having his top picks for, coordinator jobs and adjusting to, um, big moves from their team. But with what they've started off with, it sure looks like we've made the wrong decision. And that not only is hard to admit, because I think for one, I would have said that I was sucking in my gut here and saying, yeah, I think we should keep our ball. Like, I think we agreed that was the technical right answer at the time, because you're betting on a guy that hasn't been the head coach before and given this opportunity. So I'd say I'm at like to be specific, like an 84. Like, I think there's still room for him to grow as an NFL head coach. I mean, his division is not like S tier caliber. I feel like he can win the division, sure, which is a big deal, but it's also, a bunch of banged up teams. So even if the whole division was a real threat at all moments of the season, like they have been, maybe it's a different discussion, but it still hurts to know we have this guy and lose him when we're having, a head coach conversation. So yeah, my panic is super high, but it's also a panic as in, the future of this roster. And we should have had, a really young mastermind defensive guy for years to come. Like, we're basically begging for to happen in the offseason.
Yeah. I'd say what I do disagree with you on is at the time I did want them to, move Harbaugh up to the front office, or, tell him that he can tell everyone he's retiring or whatever. I wanted them to do that. But at the same time, if I put myself in Steve Bisciotti's shoes, you can't do that. You can't make that decision. I mean, that's incredibly tough to do.
Yeah.
But it does really suck. I mean, I think he's the defensive Sean McVay. I think he's the defensive Kyle Shanahan of this era. So I'm probably around a 75 or an 80, because I do think if the Ravens are to move on from Harbaugh, I do think there are a couple of guys who I really, really like, who I would be just as excited about as I would be if the Ravens had Mike Macdonald. We had a question in here. Other defensive guys. I know Zach likes Brian Flores a lot. I like,
Minter.
I think Jesse Minter is pretty similar to Mike Macdonald. But, if this does end up happening, my by far number one choice would be Clint Kubiak. Everything he's doing with the Seahawks offense right now is very impressive. I believe they're second in the NFL in passing EPA per play. He's making Sam Darnold look just as good, if not better, than Kevin O'Connell made him look last year. So that's very promising to see. And their O-line isn't great, and their O-line's playing pretty well. So Clint Kubiak would be my number one choice. I think it'd be awesome to finally have an offensive play caller at the helm in Baltimore. But I know we're talking about Mike Macdonald right now, and it really sucks that he left. But once again, nothing we can do about it now.
So what was your panic meter?
75, 80.
Okay. Well, this next one also a bit of a sore topic here. The organization decisions at really head coach, GM, roster, it kind of perfectly couples with the last decision. You kind of had, the I don't remember what it's called, succession plan, with the head coaching equivalent to, maybe it, well, not really, but Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, or, Aaron Rodgers from Brett Favre, whatever. You had that situation where, like you said, you move Harbaugh up. It happens in really successful college teams as well, where just like Duke, maybe Coach K and their current coach. So like changing, having a plan set. Maybe you did have one for this team too, where you had really high expectations for Zach Orr and they've crumbled. Like, you don't get someone that you feel that strong about with Macdonald. So it hurts. But the decisions for the roster, and interesting that we included GM in this too. Like, I've never heard discourse for Eric DaCosta like I have this year. Like, I've never really heard it in general. Sure, we were kind of scared with him in the Lamar contract situation, and then he requests the trade. But that was the only time that people were really negative towards him at all. Like, this is the first time that his job is coming into question, and I'm not on the side that would agree. I think most teams don't tend to hit every single draft pick. We're kind of talking a little highly if we're asking them to do that and go out and make this scary trades and go make a couple of mid-season signings that we usually ask for. Like, the roster, I don't think is constructed to the best, like you and me always said, with the guards and defensive authority with the line, and we thought that it was handled. Honestly, I would be a man and admit that I think that the roster going into the year was S tier. I think that when Ryan Ripken was on, a couple months ago, he was saying, I've never seen a Ravens team that looks as good as this. And like that one quote that's kind of like a meme now, it's not played on paper, it's played on the freaking field. And this team is just not meshing through the first 6 weeks. I think they can through the bye, but the team right now needs a lift. I think we would say that. And the panic for me is still high. Like, I think it's right to be panicked going into in the future with, the offseason looming about how big of a deal it is to have Lamar extended and his decision to stay with us, along with a bunch of names. I wanted to get to this, a bunch of names that are potential free agents, like Likely, who we thought we were going to pay a lot of money, and then he says no and thinks he's going to make more money. Still has a lot of time left. Mark Andrews and Linderbaum and Travis Jones. There's so many big names that if the team really doesn't look so good or looks really good by the end of it, then those guys are either too expensive to retain or you think the team might go in a new direction roster-wise. So I think the panic meter is high for me. I would go like a 79. It's right on the edge of about the upper category for this.
Yeah, I think I'm right around there. I would sort of categorize this as trusting the front office and Steve Bisciotti to make decisions that you agree with, maybe. I think they do that most of the time. There's also plenty of times where the Ravens make a decision that I disagreed with and I was wrong. Even though I was a little kid, I was mad when they drafted Ronnie Stanley because I didn't want an offensive lineman. I was mad when they drafted Marlon Humphrey because I wanted a receiver. Granted, I was in middle school, but still I was wrong. Right. Then you can flip it though. There was a comment from Mad Rasta earlier saying, why are the fans smarter than the front office? And it's fun. It's a funny comment because it's obviously not true, but you can sort of look at it in a way that is true, where it's like fans have opinions that end up being right. The Ravens fans, Baltimore flock, Ravens flock, wanted Greg Roman fired 2 years before he got fired. Yeah. Did the Ravens win a Super Bowl in those 2 years? No, they didn't. So the fans ended up being right there. There's Ravens fans that have wanted John Harbaugh to be fired since 2018. Some have wanted him to be fired since 2021. Some have wanted him to be fired since 2022. Have the Ravens won a Super Bowl since any of those years? No. So if the Ravens end up firing John Harbaugh without ever winning another Super Bowl, the fans were also right years ahead of the organization. So that's another way to look at it. There's plenty of other reasons and times where the Ravens made a move that I disagreed with and they ended up being right and I was wrong, like I mentioned earlier. So, I'm going to go with around a 60 here just because I do trust them overall. I've just mentioned before that the two things I feel very strongly about, number one, is they need to put more emphasis into the offensive line. Actually, three things. Number two, They need to make more moves. Trading for star players or even B to B plus players that you've been unable to address with the draft, a la edge rusher. We wanted them to trade for a receiver every single offseason. They finally get Zay Flowers and it works out. So that's another thing. And then number 3 is I just think, and there's a reason we're so respectful about this conversation, Zach, and it's because we have the utmost respect for John Harbaugh. He gave us a childhood Super Bowl. He's given us a 60 win percentage to be able to relax and enjoy watching the Ravens basically our whole entire lives be in the playoffs. Yeah. I think he is a great coach. I just think that it's now been 8 years with him and Lamar, and 7 or 8, and it isn't working. And when I mean working, I mean they're not getting to Super Bowls, they're not winning Super Bowls, and you just got to make a change. And that's my third opinion and my final opinion, and I think my most important opinion about all of this is just I think you got to make a change after this season, not midseason, after this season, and just see what happens, man. I do. I just think that's the only thing you can do from here.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the next topic of the panic meter, which would be adjustments during the bye. Kind of specifically personnel. We, had our thoughts about the coaches enough tonight as well. Like, we've talked about the O-line. We've talked about getting trades for guys. We've talked about maybe a couple free agent guys, like you mentioned that list before. I even mentioned moving some guys around defensively, like trying stuff that hopefully works. I think bringing in Gilman, if we had a larger sample size, I think that I like the way that the roster looked last week. I appreciate that. And I think that past that, I also think that the Ravens do need to change, like you mentioned, but there's just not a lot of guys to do it. And if you can't do it in-house, you've just got to go get someone. It's not going to be an O-lineman unless an absolute miracle happens. And I think that we're counting a lot on a big defensive move, and it might mean giving up, a lot of capital for it. Like, we're banking a lot on that, because if Harbaugh is really the guy for the Ravens front office and Zach Orr really is his guy, then we're really banking on a turnaround, a substantial turnaround, a full 180 turnaround on the season. I think that's a lot to ask for, but the team has done it before where they've rattled off, 12 wins in a row. It's not like it's out of the question. That's the only reason we're talking about it. The team is capable of it. But right now, I think that they're missing out on a couple of talented guys to help defensively and offensive line wise. And to say that's where the fans really are resting with, if we're not on this boat of like everyone hopping on the ship of Fire Harbaugh, it is everyone on the ship for a move defensively or a change offensive line wise.
Yeah. So where would you be for this one?
That they will make the changes?
I guess we could phrase it as like you're concerned or not concerned that they'll make the changes that you're hoping they make.
I'm very concerned.
That they're not going to?
Yes.
So you're concerned that they will not bench Faalele, basically, is
correct.
What? Okay.
It feels like they've all, like we've reiterated a couple times tonight about this, arrogance about their guys. If it's not arrogance about their guys, it's confidence in them, so they're hoping that they do get more out of them. Yeah. So Faalele, even through last year, by the end of it, he was getting dragged through the freaking mud. So Harbaugh, when asked about him, it was always, no, we're confident in him. We're confident in his ability. Lamar asked about him. We're confident in him. It's the same kind of thing you would say if it's freaking Cooper Rush going out there for you on Sunday. Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews are saying, yeah, we're confident in him, but you kind of have to say that. Like when Tyler Huntley was out there, it was a different like attitude and confidence to the team. So if Cooper Rush is out there, then your team's like, well, actually, I mean, yeah, we're confident. I'm sure you say that. And it's the same situation here with the Fa'alele, with the Voorhees, because there is no one to save us right now. There's not going to be, unless you look in-house, which I think just trying it would be more beneficial than saying and sitting there unable and unwilling to make a change whatsoever. Like there's not even been a hint at it besides them just saying, yeah, we're going to look at changes. Like that came out today, by the way, when we're at our lowest point and going into the bye week with all cards on the table. So I'm very panicked they won't make the change, and I'm very panicked that this year does turn out to be just a total nightmare. And I think that my panic would be pretty high, maybe like an 87.
Okay. Yeah, we have a comment from Latrell. My deepest fear is Lamar saves them. Ravens limp into the playoffs, losing the playoffs. Harbs is brought back next year. Yeah, it would be 2018 all over again. It would be the same exact thing as 2018. Instead of Lamar being a rookie, he's coming back from an injury. And it'd be the same exact thing 7 years later, which is crazy. For me, on personnel changes, I think I'm going to be right around a 50 because I feel like Harbaugh might make a change on the offensive line. And I feel very 50-50 about that. You know, I don't know if he's going to. I don't know if he's not. But, you know, the way he talked about it at least seemed like he, you know, I don't think he would lie about that. That doesn't really seem like something you need to lie about. He was like, yeah, we are considering making a change on the offensive line. So I think it could be a possibility. And also, Zach, you were talking about arrogance. I think stubbornness is a great word too. Like, first of all, it can't get much worse. Second of all, if you put Corey Bullock in there, Ben Cleveland, and they are just absolutely terrible, the worst guard you've ever seen in their life, put Faalele back in after 2 series, right? It's not that big of a deal. And we all know it wouldn't be that bad anyway. So they got to make a change on the offensive line. Unless they acquire someone, I don't think there's much else to do on defense. Obviously continue to play Gilman and Starks deep with Hamilton in the box, which I know they will continue to do, and just hope that they make a change on the interior offensive line. So
with the mental games that Harbaugh plays, where we've talked about it in the past, where he would say something really maybe out of character for him, where it seems very negative about the team, and the team kind of takes it personally and plays a little more harder. That kind of happened last week. And think about a situation where Harbaugh does say, like, yeah, actually, we're going to start Corey Bullock. And Corey Bullock goes out there and plays like crap. And then Faalele gets dragged back in, like you said, after 2 series. The mental game that plays of like the offense seeing, oh, yeah, that's our starter. And then the O-line also seeing, you know, that's the starter we want out here.
Yeah.
There's mental games to be played still, and maybe he's tapping into that. Like that kind of changes my thought about it, because I think they could do a change, but I think that is the man to play a mental game, especially with how we are looking this late into the season already.
That's a really good point. Yeah, they could see that maybe the guard that they put in is struggling, and Faalele comes back in, and they're like, yeah, this is our guy, and maybe it establishes a little bit more confidence moving forward. Appreciate it, Latrell. Yeah, man. Obviously a crazy time to be a Ravens fan. You know, guys, even though the Ravens are 1-5 right now, there's a lot of fans that are also completely distraught right now. Was listening to a Bills podcast this morning. I think they feel worse than we do somehow. they think their season's completely cooked and they're never winning a Super Bowl. So a lot of people are not feeling good right now. I mean, who is feeling good? Steelers fans and Patriots fans, probably Chiefs fans now.
This is a crazy comment.
Funny
That's
comment from
awesome.
Living Legend there. Bucks fans probably happy. And then who else? Seahawks maybe. So a lot of people are struggling right now. And you guys just got to look at it as like it's going to be exciting either way. Either the Ravens are going to completely fall off and there's going to be a new regime, high draft pick, or they're going to go on a crazy run and make the playoffs. It's going to be one of those two options. So strap in, right, Zach?
Yeah, especially in an NFL that doesn't have the head honcho right now above everyone else. Sure, the Chiefs look pretty good, but there's not an obvious Super Bowl favorite through 6 weeks in the NFL, and that is something. Maybe the Ravens just sneak in and go on a run. Maybe they are freaking 2-15. You don't know. And we're going to be covering it all season for you guys. Appreciate you all coming through. Let's give some shout outs here. KP, Living Legend, Latrell Spreewell is the American Dream. I said the full name. You're welcome. Carson Tipton, Kwame, Clovel, Matt Rasta, shout out.
Mackay, Nate Blake,
Khalil,
Mackay, Andy Martinez,
Newt,
Kwame, I think you said.
Originate popped in for a little there.
Ellen FN.
Yeah.
Clovel had an interesting comment. It was like
the 2K build.
What are your thoughts on Lamar's 2K build? Two-way slasher. I think two-way slasher is a good build for Lamar. I feel like that's probably about how you would play. Maybe playmaker, with the quarterback background. Maybe a two-way playmaker or a slashing playmaker.
Maybe an ISO. Maybe an ISO guy. Something like that.
Yeah.
He can do it himself. Appreciate you all for coming by. We just hit 800 subscribers. Appreciate you all for all the support. Let's get to 900. If you haven't subscribed, you sure should. Like the video. And appreciate you all coming for this extended Q&A. I think our next video is going to be next Tuesday. That is a bit away. So enjoy the bye week. We will as well. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Peace. See you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.